Port Theater, right on Main Street.
No, I'm saying it wasn't. It's not where I went to see it. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to remember where I saw it though.
It's our Amherst.
Oh, we're.
Yeah.
Hello.
Still won't go swimming.
My one.
Scared the world.
Welcome everybody to the regularly stated meeting for the Yarmouth Conservation Commission meeting for Thursday, June 20th, 2024. This is to formally advise that it is required by General Law, Chapter 30A, Sections 18 through 25, and pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law on June 16, 2021, as extended by Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023. The Yarmouth Conservation Commission will hold a public meeting at the date and time noted above. The public is welcome to attend either in person or via the alternative public access provided on the notice of meeting available on the Town of Yarmouth website. Again, this is the Yarmouth Conservation Commission meeting for Thursday, June 20th, 2024. Our first order of business is a request for determination of applicability for Ocean Harbor Estate Association, 90 Harbor Road, and this is proposed Moby mat and kayak rack on a coastal beach and land subject to coastal storm flowage. Good afternoon, everybody. Just if you would just state your name for the record, then briefly describe what you'd like to do, and then we'll turn it over to questions from the board.
Good afternoon. My name is Ed Hurley. I live on Windward Way in West Yarmouth, and here representing Ocean Harbor Estate, along with Rachel. And the basic request, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you may have, fill in some blanks for you, but we are here tonight to request authorization for a kayak rack to be constructed at the entrance to the private beach at the end of Harbor Road that's owned by Ocean Harbor Estate. In previous years, the kayaks, along with other smaller crafts for folks that had moorings in that area of Lewis Bay, had been stored on the beach. And last year, we were notified that one of our neighbors had complained about the location and what was being done to store the kayaks. And let me be very clear tonight, with Rachel and I and other members of our association, you know, we're here because we want to work with you and make sure whatever we're doing what's right. Just some quick history for all of you. I mean, I've been in this area a long time as a guest. I was 3 years old. My grandparents built a home, and we used that beach. Was our beach from the time I was 3. I spent every day of every summer of my life till I was 18. And we're fortunate 6 years ago, my wife and I bought a house across the street, ironically, from my grandparents, and we moved here full-time 2 years ago. So this area is very important to me and my family, and I know to a lot of other families. So I also want to just thank Brittany and also Finn for their support during this process. They were incredibly supportive last year when we met with them. I should also mention, and then I'll try to do what I'm not very good at, which is stop talking. Last year, our association at our meeting last summer did vote to authorize funds to construct a kayak rack for folks that want to have kayaks. So it has been approved by our association. So we met with Brittany a couple times, and then we submitted the request for determination. So that's a quick background. Rachel, anything you want to add?
I think that's pretty thorough.
Okay, questions from the board?
I do. Which one do you prefer? Is the one that's the 8 foot high by 12 feet wide, or 6 feet high by 14 wide?
Well, look, I think, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I think, you know, we ended up, when I went to measure and stake out the area there, in the area that we had originally talked about locating it, which is right here, the only one that really I thought fit comfortably was the 12 by 8 one,
12 by 8,
which would be
12
3
by
feet
8.
up. But I also am not sure, and as we have a conversation tonight with what was sent to us, I wasn't sure what the markings meant on the map, and if it was something that, you know, there may be areas, if there's other areas besides that spot, you know, that we could put the rack, we'd certainly be open to that. Again, we want to do what is best for not just our association, but what you all think is best to protect the area as well.
The other remark I would ask you to add in there is, it says, in the event of extreme stormy weather, all owners are encouraged to remove. How about,
Required?
even though they're going to be strapped down? I think, with that, those,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
That's all I have.
You covered it. I appreciated how you staked out and put the string between your tent stakes.
fun.
I am not a surveyor, as you can tell by my work. I did the best I could. God bless my wife was trying to help me to figure out what the best angle was for it to work, but that's what we came up with. And again, and if you have thoughts that you think there's another area that might work better or would be better, we'd certainly be open to that.
Better than some of the professionals do, let me tell you.
I have a question about where you're gonna put the mat.
Yeah. Thank you. That's right there. So, pretty much, from the road, and as you can imagine, over the, in recent years, there's been a lot more erosion, not just to the beach, but to the dunes. So there's a lot of sand that's on the road now. So basically, try to determine, where the road ends. I remember when I was a child, right, here, there was a boat ramp that came down there. Boat ramp is long gone. So what we'd want to do is from the road and just bring it right to between the two benches. And the hope is that, folks, myself included, as we get older, that folks have ability to still get to the beach in a walker or a wheelchair. And again, that would be something, as I think we indicated, that would be something that we would just do seasonally and would be taken down as well.
So how many feet roughly?
It's funny
I
that you
know,
said that. I was thinking
pace it off of
on the
that.
way over here tonight. I said I measured it and I didn't bring it with me. But it was, I want to say, if I had to guess, I want to say like maybe 50 feet.
Yeah. I think we did an estimated
Yeah,
measurement
it was-
last year, and it was around 50 feet, because we were looking at the different ones available, and we knew we were going to need a longer length to get down from the street.
It's all good.
I would only ask that we put a set dates on the seasonality, so
Yep.
in after April 1st and out by November 1st.
Absolutely. I think we were thinking October. That's all right.
They
April
had
1st.
that in here, yeah.
Yep. Okay.
April 30th.
Works the same way.
Okay.
Either way, I'm good. All right, Brittany, anything?
I think someone over
Yeah,
here.
I would, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Jack.
Oh, Jack, you have a question?
No, no.
Yeah, I just have one question. So, just so I understand, the mat will be put down and taken up at the end of the season. The rack itself will remain there?
No.
No,
Oh, it's
that
gonna be
will also
taken
be
off too.
temporary.
It will be taken down and stored.
Oh, excellent,
Winter,
okay.
yeah.
All right, thanks.
Anybody else?
Can I do something that I shouldn't do? But I've got one other question. If I can just ask, I had mentioned that also on the beach, historically, folks that had, moorings in Lewis Bay in that area, it's only people that live in the area, have kept their boats on the beach, the small crafts to get out to the moorings. And obviously, you can't do that again. Is that something would there be an area that we could, it's only a couple of folks, I believe.
Yeah, it's about 3 individuals who historically have had a tender down there. And we've removed all of the chains and cinder blocks that were down there. But we're worried about how they can be accommodated, since there's no other access point to this beach, and it's only allowed for people who are members of the association. There can't be other moorings out there if they don't belong to the association.
And I would say, just to kind of reinforce that, we make absolutely clear, if we can find a space to put 2 or 3, of the small, rowboat type things that they use, that it would only be for people who have crafts with, moorings in Lewis Bay, not for other folks who want to
The
put
rack.
something there.
Reconfigure the rack. Let's put them on the lowest level.
That's what I would think that you either put on the low level of the rack. Would that work?
I think it probably would work. I think the only, concern would be, as it is, we're thinking that, having 8 or 9 places for kayaks, might not be enough. We're going to do a lottery. We're figuring out how we're going to do that and all. So I think, to take a couple or 3 of them up, a third of them up, for that, I think would probably in some ways defeat the purpose of having the kayak rack.
Could you go back to the picture of the beach?
Is that a heritage habitat, or is that land under the ocean? That's marked there, the purple.
Oh, that's just coastal beach.
It's just beach, okay.
Yeah, coastal
we've
beach,
been
coastal
kind
dune.
of strict on putting dinghies on the resource
Yeah, we haven't
areas.
recently been allowing that.
If we start that, we're gonna have it all up and down where we've been strict about removing them.
Is that area where the cursor is now? Yeah, right above that, Brittany, coming down towards the shaded area.
Sorry, over
Fire
here?
hydrant is?
Yeah, right in there. The fire hydrant is right up a little higher, I think.
Yeah.
Buried
Yeah,
fire
fire
hydrant.
hydrant's there, and then what's the area further down?
This is
Like-
Town of Yarmouth property.
Okay. So all of that is Town of Yarmouth property? Or is that, I
think
that
so.
Is that,
Or a trust. I can't remember.
I think it's in the Conservation Trust.
Well, the trust is to the west.
Okay.
Yeah.
The west and the north. Our lot is between the two.
League, bad precedent. Bad precedent.
I think
there
so
you go,
too.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, this is owned by your association, but it's still under
Conservation restriction.
jurisdiction, yeah. Oh, no, it's not priority habitat.
Well, I would say
I
for,
guess if you keep it on the association property and you don't put it on the vegetation, it's
I think
between
that's,
you and
that's
whoever.
setting it on the resource area, which, like I said, we've been very strict about removing that stuff in the past 2 or 3
Yeah,
years.
in the past 3 years, we've been sending violation notices for boats tied up on beaches.
Stem the tails in the rack and.
So you can still, yeah, I would just put it in the rack then.
Is the whole area considered resource area?
Yeah.
Yes.
The whole lot is? Okay.
all right.
On one of your racks here, you're doing 3 tiers, and the other's just 2. Could you use the larger one and just go up 3? Give you 3 more spaces? It's just-
Extended the tails on the rack so you could put 3 more boats on the outside.
Then it wouldn't fit in the space
Oh.
unless you do another row on top, which might not be able to reach.
I was just thinking horizontally.
Just a question, please. So this conversation is about the ability to put it like a dinghy on the beach, and because there's moorings right off the, and so the moorings are still there, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Now, you're saying that, I mean, I know they make things like carts and things to carry dinghies. Could it be possible to bring it down to the water and then bring it back,
They have a Moby map. It makes it a lot easier to bring it on a little dolly.
Quite convenient.
Yeah.
bring it down closer to the
And these
water?
are for members of the homeowners association, right, who have the moorings, then I would say it's a,
You could use a dolly down the street and down the Moby mat, and away you go.
Yeah.
yeah, given that, then I would say, I tend to agree with everybody else. You need to put them in the,
Fine. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
May I ask one more question in regard to that area? So what is now sand is about 20% of what was 20 years ago when I first bought my home here. There are native species there that we recognize are important. Is it acceptable for us to remove bittersweet and Virginia creeper, things that are invasives that are encroaching?
Well, Virginia creeper is native. I know it's a
didn't know
vine.
that, sorry.
Unless it's in the pathway, you can hand clip
For
in
the
the
pathway.
pathways, but
I mean, generally, we allow a 4-foot pathway to be maintained.
Okay.
So that allows, foot access, and if you're bringing the dollies and that sort of thing. If you're going to do anything more than that, I would say, no, you need to do a new filing for that.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board? Brittany?
nope, I'll sit.
Anybody in the audience?
Oh,
Hi, thank you. And if you just state your name for the record.
Absolutely. David Lawler, an attorney in Hyannis. How you doing, Mr. Hoops, Mr. Chairman? I represent the owners at 85 Harborside, or Harbor Road, I'm sorry, the Bellevues, with respect to this application. They're here neither opposing nor supporting it, but we just wanted to address some concerns. And that there are certain restrictions that are placed, and one of the ones is, involving, some of the boats, which quite frankly, I think is an expansion of the application, and is not, my client couldn't be here, so I haven't had the opportunity to speak with them about the requested expansion of the application to include boats other than kayaks. But if I may approach, I just have some photographs. I apologize, I ran out of my color. I only have one set of colored, but I have, I'll give you a copy as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Thank you. We'll share it. We're fine.
You sharing?
We'll share one.
No, everybody's sharing. Look at her.
We get along. We don't bite real hard.
Nice to see. So, as I said, I don't oppose, and I put the first picture up to be fair. That was taken this week, and that the property has been cleared, and there are no boats there. And I didn't want to make a representation of, to put false ideas in your head, and that there aren't any boats there. But if you look at the second and third photographs, those were taken in September. And one of the issues we have is that, there's about 50 some odd properties that are involved in this association.
It's
And-
actually 90.
90? Okay, thank you. And a lot of them also have, I believe, rentals, Airbnbs, some weekly rentals and things of that nature. And in the past, and I'm not suggesting that these two folks here are part of it by any, it sounds like they're very conscientious, but in the past, there's been some pretty major abuses with giant floats that have been tied there for the week, and, other items that, are going into the resource, and, clearly, and boats, and this picture that you have there, the second photograph, was taken in September, and granted, in that photograph, there's only, probably 1, 2, 3, probably, 8, 9, 10 boats there, but that's in September. And in speaking with my clients, then in July and August, it's exceptionally, the amount of boats there in the past have been far in excess of that amount, plus all this other stuff and trash and whatnot. They live right there, and they're actually part of the group. And we're not suggesting that we're opposing a kayak wreck. We're not. But I would just like to make it very clear that there are very clear provisions in the order, if this board so seems to approve an order, which, listening to your comments and whatnot, that you seem to be headed in that direction, that there's some very clear and precise language in the approval to ensure that, that any vessels are stored only on the rack, that no other, we're not storing any accessory equipment, we're not storing any other items, that no other boats are going to be tied or chained to the rack. And again, I think that the addition of, I haven't had an opportunity to speak with my client, so that makes me a little hesitant. His understanding was that there weren't going to be any rowboats back and forth, and that's not part of the application. And I'm not, obviously didn't have the opportunity to consult with him about that issue. So, as a matter of precaution, I would oppose the rowboat addition to that, and that would be part of a new application or an amended application. Again, we don't, support nor oppose the kayak racks, but we're very concerned because it's very difficult to control, the Airbnb folks and whatnot, and rentals and pay. And we understand, I'm an attorney here, that's part of the Cape Cod economy, and those folks, the visitors to Cape Cod is what pays everybody's bill at some point. So we're not suggesting that it's a bad thing, but we just want to make sure that the coastal resource is protected, that this area is protected, and there's a tendency for folks who don't actually own here not to understand the rules and regulations as well as others might. So those are my clients' concerns.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So unfortunately, encourage the one condition, that it would just be one condition added on that would say that the boats should only be stored in the kayak rack, no vessel storage on the beach
resource
or
area.
In the resource area.
Agreed.
We can go with that. Jack,
And you were,
hold on. Go ahead, Jack.
and we need to consider putting in requirement for signage?
I think that's basically up for the association to
Oh,
put the
is it?
signage up and let the people who are renting their place, to
Okay.
let the people who are renting, that's the way it is.
I think you should.
But that's certainly something the condominium association should.
Yeah.
Just say if there are
Enforce, yeah.
issues, and that's where you call natural resources, and they take care of it. It should
If I can just to clarify, our expectation is, the only folks who are going to have boats in that rack are going to be homeowners, not folks that are coming and renting or Airbnb. You get we haven't developed them yet or promoted them yet, but we're going to have a procedure in place for anyone. We talked about this last summer, that if somebody is going to have a kayak there, to the point when it needs to be in by, when it needs to be out by, and it's only going to be for, property owners.
And I think the fear that some people have, rightfully so, is that you come down for the week, renting an Airbnb, you bring your kayaks, you bring it on the beach, you just leave them there. And that's, somehow that needs to be communicated both to the homeowner who's renting it out, as
And
well as
the
to
renters.
people coming, that you can't do that. And that has to be communicated.
And that's something we've been working very hard to do. In all of the communication we've been sending out to our membership, we've made it very clear that no boat storage is allowed at all on the beach. This photo of the 8 kayaks was not condoned by the association. This happened after we had communicated at both our annual meeting and in 2 mailings to all membership that they were not to do this. So we're working to enforce it, but thank you for your recommendation to reach out to Natural Resources, because that is a beneficial piece.
And I would also just reinforce the photo, the first photo that was shared of what it looks like now. That's what we expected it to look like, and everyone was communicated. There was an email and letters that went out to all of the homeowners saying, no boats are allowed on the beach, period.
I think you just need to keep ramming that home
We
with
will.
the
Yep.
with the membership. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Christine Greeley. I'm sitting in the audience. However, I am a homeowner with beach rights. I'm also secretary of the Ocean Harbors. And I just needed a point of clarification. I mean, there was photos shared with you that obviously we in the audience couldn't see. But now that some things have been brought up by both Ed and Rachel, I will tell you that in the annual renewal notice to all of the homeowners, they're actually cited, I actually put red stamping in the areas on both the letter to them and to their renewal forms of their need to the fact that there was no allowance of any storage of boats at all on the property at this time, and that there was further work that was going to be done with you as a Conservation Commission. So there's been formal notice to every single homeowner there. But the pictures, the dated pictures are when, what was stored there. Because, I mean, I will tell you, for the most part, living and being, I go swimming every day, things like that, there have not been boats down there. So I don't know when those pictures were taken, but we've worked very hard as an association to make sure that it isn't. Excuse me for commenting, but it's a point of clarification sitting in the audience. You don't know what you're being shown. Sorry.
Thank you.
I think Attorney Lawler, I don't know if everybody heard it. The pictures that we were questioning was taken back, I think you said September of last year. So, and so we do recognize that it has been corrected. You're doing what you're supposed to do, and that's all we're asking, that you continue to do that.
And yet I can show you, having taken the minutes at the annual meeting last July, that we gave very formal notice to all of our homeowners that there was to be nothing stored there. So whoever was putting it there was not
Not
done
gonna
with
correct
either
this
our
over-
authority or permission.
You're not going to correct
Thank
this
you.
overnight, believe me.
Just one question, that I think it was mentioned that Natural Resources would be an enforcement body in this, if things are all piled up over there off the kayak rack. They see a golf cart there. I don't know if that's park legally or whatever, is that a function of?
That's illegal also, and we've been encouraging them to, that is also illegal, and we've been making it
about
clear
that.
that they're not allowed as well.
Okay, so my
There's no
question-
parking on that road, it's a private
I
road.
see. But it is natural resources that would
We, also
enforce that?
us.
Or, yeah, I was going to say, or Brittany.
You.
Yeah, okay.
Me.
All right.
Trying to take it away from Brittany.
Brittany's tougher than natural resources. so.
She is.
Need a gun.
She doesn't need a gun.
All right, any other questions from the board? Anybody else in the audience? Anybody on Zoom? Unless there's further discussion among the board, would somebody like to make a motion for a -2 with the special condition for citing vessel storage only on the rack?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. So the negative is a good thing for you. It means that you don't have to do any further work or filing with conservation.
May I ask one remaining question, not related, but as we go back next week to our annual meeting, I know I will receive the question, what do the individuals with the moorings do? What is being done in other beach areas around town?
They bring the boat.
Yeah, we're
leave a
trying to
cart.
keep any storage of boats on the resource, out of the resource area itself. So, that's, again,
A lot of
this is
them,
something that's happened over years and years and years, so it's going to take a while for us to get a full handle on that.
but a lot of them put them in either small trailers and launch them off local ramps, or they use the dolly system and they dolly it down, and it's just a dolly that you have on the resource area, which doesn't throw any shade or anything else, and it doesn't remain on the resource area.
I can say
Okay.
my beach association, people dolly down, or we have racks in the bottom where they put their boats to get out
Whatever
to the
vessel
beach.
they're using.
Some of them walk out because we're talking Lewis Bay and low tide, you know that along Shore Drive, they just walk out to their boats.
Yeah. And that is accessible for some of ours, but there are a few that are further out, and I just want to be prepared, so thank you.
Okay, good luck.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Right, next order of business is another request for determination of applicability for Ursula King, 36 Constance Avenue, proposed construction of a 263 square foot addition in the buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland.
Hello, good evening. I'm Tulio. I'm responsible. I'm representing Ursula here. She hired us to go through. Well, first of all, she just background information. She came to the building department wondering about the housing for full-time people here. There's no rental property for like travel nurses and all that. And she used to be a nurse. So she decided, after she talked to the commissioner, she decided to go ahead with a project to build an addition to the only spot that is possible in her house, which is towards the back, for not even like travel nurses and people that need year-round rentals here. Since everything, a lot on the Cape is seasonal, hers is gonna be like year-round. And it's within the 100 feet buffer, so that's why we're filing the conservation notice of determination. And yeah, and I'm here representing her. So if you have any comments, please.
Questions from the board?
Do you have a picture? Maybe.
That would be no.
Polar bear in a snowstorm, we're,
Computer's
This
not
was taken in
cooperating.
January.
Yeah, I don't know, sorry. Okay, there we go.
oh, that's
You?
why you wanted the picture.
That's right, I wanted to be in it.
So it would come up
Okay, so, all
here. This is the area in the back,
right.
side. So it's just going
Look.
spot here.
What's 13 times 24?
You're outside the 50, right?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
What's 13 times 24?
You're outside the 50-foot buffer.
Yes,
He's
yes,
just
yes.
confirming.
Is there any mitigation being,
There's no mitigation proposed because the 50 is mostly vegetated.
it is mostly vegetated.
Yeah.
72
Yeah,
is
312.
312.
yeah.
Don't know what's going on with that.
They're claiming it's how many feet?
Although it is ivy.
It's vegetated with ivy.
This is true.
All right. Questions from the board?
Not that it matters, I just come up with a bigger footprint than 263, but that's just me.
24 by 13,
I
right?
think what you're doing is
312.
you're not counting this area that's there already.
Oh, right, see, whatever that is, that's it.
That's a little bump out. So you have, what is it?
It's fine. It's flood zone, it's whatever.
Yeah, it's just 49 square feet difference, and that's that little bump out that's there.
Whatever.
We're saying 263, right? I would believe that's a 49 square foot
Just,
existing.
Yeah.
right.
Okay, anybody else? Anybody at all?
No.
Brittany?
No, my only comment would be not to disturb the vegetation with the work limit line. Just have it on the edge of the vegetation instead of within,
Okay.
just so you don't need to go in there.
All right.
Okay, you want a work limit line?
I don't need to redraw, just I can
Okay.
do a condition.
All right, anybody in the audience? Anybody on Zoom? If not, would somebody like to make a motion for a -3?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously.
And that's a -3, correct?
That's a -3. All right, so the negative is a good thing for you. You don't have to do any further filing with conservation. Check back with Brittany sometime toward the end of next week for the permit, for the actual determination. You can take that along with everything else that you need for building permit then.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good day, everyone.
All right, next order of business is a continued notice of intent for SE 83-2431, Chris Gloninger, Woods Hole Group for Arnold Beach Chase, 0 Great Island Road. This is a filing for an emergency sandbag reinforcement of a barrier on coastal dune, barrier on coastal beach, and land subject to coastal storm flowage.
Right. They're not continuing.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is Brian Wall. I'm an attorney. I have an office in Sandwich. And with me tonight is Leslie Fields from the Woods Hole Group and Malcolm Kent from the Great Island Association. We are here tonight requesting a continuance to August 15th. While we probably could have simply relied upon a letter, since this is a relatively routine matter thus far, we felt it was appropriate to come before you because we want to provide you a status report and also an explanation for the continuance request. So as the commission is aware, the Great Island Road was damaged in a storm on December 18th, 2023. And since that road provides access to 43 homes, including emergency access, it was important to protect the road. And so emergency work certification was given to place the geotextile bags filled with sand in the area where the dunes were most compromised and to protect the road. Work also allowed the bags to be covered with sand and then sloped so that they mimicked what a dune would be. The emergency work certification required that there be a filing after the fact to obtain, full permission for the work that was authorized on an emergency basis. And that's the notice of intent that was filed in April. There's a rather detailed, well thought out notice of intent before you to obtain after the fact permission for the work that was actually done. but a curveball kind of was thrown at us by the DEP. So you must know that when an NOI is filed, the DEP gives a file number to the application. And in years past, they simply did that and didn't make any comments, but in the past several months or maybe even a year or two, they've started to make comments on the transmission back to the commission and to the applicant. And in this particular instance, the DEP commented that the geotextile bags are considered by the DEP to be a coastal engineering structure, which, are allowed on some coastal banks, but not on dunes. And we don't necessarily agree with that yet, but it's obviously thrown a hurdle into our path. And so we're here tonight to tell you that that's what happened. And because of the DEP's position, we are essentially kind of going back to square one, and we're reassessing the situation, we're reassessing our options, and including gathering some additional information. And we wanted the commission to know where we are, that this was not just a routine request. That's why we want the 2 months till August, and hopefully we'll be ready to proceed at that time. But we're also here tonight to tell you that we might even need more time, because again, I'm sure the commission knows that when an applicant comes before you with a project, there's usually months of work that lead up to that, that you don't see, the survey work, the design work, the preparing the narrative, et cetera. So in any event, we're here tonight asking for a continuance to August 15th, and we wanted you to know where we stand right now. And Leslie is with me tonight, and she can provide a little bit more detail on the scientific aspects of this.
Thank you, Brian. Again, Leslie Fields with the Woods Hole Group. I think we told you this when we were here last time for the emergency certification, but Woods Hole Group was brought on by the Great Island Homeowners Association in the fall of 2023. And that purpose of that was to develop a feasibility study of alternatives for building resiliency for that road, like how, helping them figure out how they're going to continue getting to their properties along that road, which is very vulnerable. So we were just tired, and then they were hit by the storms. There was a lot of erosion of the road and dune and beach, and so we were then sort of trying to develop this short-term solution to provide erosion control for the road. That's what's before you now with a notice of intent. I wanted to also just let you know that while we were doing that short-term solution, we're also working on this feasibility study, the longer-term solution. And what we found is that it's a really unique property, and it's complicated to figure out this longer-term solution. And I'm just going to give you a couple of reasons why it is complicated. We know that it's very vulnerable because right now they're experiencing flooding of the road in certain places during high tide. That's only going to get worse as sea level rises, and certainly with storms, more and more of the road is going to become flooded. We also know that the neighboring, the adjacent road, the town-owned road leading up to Great Island is also very low and vulnerable. So any sort of solution that involves work on that road could also involve coordinating with the town and those homeowners to try to, remove that flood vulnerability leading up to Great Island. We also know that the road is in the top 5 of the most vulnerable roads on Cape Cod in terms of sort of when high tide flooding is going to become an issue, how soon it's going to become an issue, in terms of the number of properties impacted, and in terms of vulnerability to erosion. So it's in the top 5. We also know that we're working, this, any project we come up with is going to be in a highly sensitive resource area. So we've got barrier beach, coastal dunes, salt marsh, rare species habitat out there. So anything that we come up with for conceptual alternatives for the long term, it's got to be, permittable. It's got to meet the regulations. That just makes it more complicated. I think also all of the alternatives we're looking at are extremely costly. And so the decision about how best to go forward with a long-term alternative needs to be made by a group of 43 homeowners. It's very costly. And so it's taking time to sort of figure out what direction they're going to go. We have, aside from all those complications, we have been making a lot of progress. And I hope Malcolm will agree with that. We feel like we've made a lot of progress, and we think that we're going to be able to make a decision. They're going to be able to make a decision fairly soon But we have been advising them on this short-term solution, the one that's before you tonight, not to make a rash decision and don't do it in a vacuum, because the solution for the short term and the long term are really tied together. And so, we want them to think about both before they make this decision. And it just makes it more complicated and takes a little bit more time. So we hope that you'll accept the request for a continuance while we work on it, and, hopefully we'll be back with a solution that can be approved.
My name is Malcolm Kent. I'm a member of the board of the Great Island Homeowners Association, and we've been working very closely, as Leslie just said, with the Woods Hole Group to try to figure out this extremely complicated situation. And we really want to get it right. So we are going to continue to work on this, and again, we just want to, we appreciate very much the help and guidance we're going to get from the Conservation Commission. So I want to say thank you, and we will be coming back whenever we have something that we think is really appropriate.
3 points.
Go ahead. I'll arm wrestle you. Go ahead.
I think most of us are aware that this road is part of the Cape Cod Commission Low Roads Program, so a lot of us are aware of that. So we get that, and we understand that it's a very challenging project just based on that alone. Two, in my opinion, and I've said this before at hearings, that I feel like the sand is a Band-Aid for a bigger solution to this project, which is ultimately to move the road and reconfigure the bridge and all those issues I'm sure you're considering. And wait for the groan here amongst my group. I'm a real proponent of sand mining. I have to believe that there is a way to go forward with dredging material, which was on the beach originally and just are less than a mile offshore, and put it back on the shore. It's the right color, it's the right size. I mean, I can give you a whole list of why that, in my opinion, it really makes sense. And it's done in other parts of the country. Why we're not able to do it, we haven't been able to do it here, I don't get it. But I just wanted to get out on the record, in my opinion, sand mining would be a great solution for this project. And I wish you good luck, because it's obviously a very important project.
Can I just respond to that? I agree with you in part. Sand mining was done here in 1989. It was the first year I started working at Woods Hole Group, and that was the first project I worked
It's
on.
near the channel, right on the west shore, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So we did have an offshore borrow site, and they pumped material up onto the beach. Those permits have long since expired, and it'll be a long process in order to get something like that permitted right now. Not impossible, but it would be a long, 5 years probably.
Yep.
They don't have 5 years. We got to protect the road now.
And with all these southeast storms, the game has changed.
Yes, yes.
Hold on, Jack, and then to David.
Can you tell me the progress you've made on, if any, on being able to change the geotextile fabric so that it meets standards?
We have been looking at some alternatives and sort of trying to develop some costs, but, beyond that, we haven't selected anything, and, we're aware of some other alternatives, but we haven't selected anything.
I think originally, was that because you put it in because you couldn't find anything else? Was that?
One of the reasons why we used the geotextiles is because we only had a week before the next storm was coming, and so that was all that was sort of available in the market at the time. Correct.
Well, I'd add that, probably shouldn't talk about it here, but I saw the article recently about,
Salisbury?
yeah, on the, on the sand that they're going to be using for the Corps of Engineers project in Sandwich.
Oh, right.
And took them how many years to get that permit?
About 5 or 6.
Well, it's actually probably longer because of if you look at the whole picture of it. And so, good luck on this one. I don't have any solutions.
It actually took a long time because one of the factors there was that the federal government has a statute that they don't admit fault readily, and so you have to file a complaint and then they investigate themselves. So there was a long lead up to the permitting before the Corps of Engineers admitted that the jetties were interfering with that flow.
Right.
But they are going to take sand out of the canal.
Yeah.
And put it on the beach. And I was going to mention the town of Yarmouth and Dennis does that too with their dredging permits. for the Bass River and others that the sand is taken out and put on beaches. So there is some precedent for that.
I'm just going to add one more thing, that at the Sandwich Project, there is an offshore borrow site, it's nearshore borrow site that we permitted at Woods Hole Group. It's offshore Escusset. So they are using that as a part of this core Section 111 study or project, and they'll be using that material from the nearshore borrow site to nourish the beaches.
Further down, yeah.
Yeah.
I just have a quick question about the DEP. They said no, whatever they said, negatively, but did they give you any alternatives? Or they just said no?
Well, the alternatives are up for the applicant to study and come up with. That's how the notice of intent works. You know, we propose projects. The DEP didn't do that.
I asked that question because I'm on the advisory council for the wastewater, and we had a whole set of rules, and then suddenly the rules changed, and we're working on the new rules.
Diligently.
Right.
These rules didn't change. It's just,
No.
Well, but to your point, I just want to make it clear too that one of the things we're considering is whether that DEP statement is correct or not, because you know what we always traditionally think of coastal engineering structures are revetments or bulkheads, and soft solutions were tended to be permitted. Right. And I personally think this is a soft solution. So we have some appellate rights. I've searched the DEP case law for the decisions that come out of their, OADR department, their adjudicatory department, and there's no case on this. So I consider this currently to be DEP's opinion, and it's not necessarily established. And so that's one of the things we're thinking about is whether we want to contest that and try to stick with what we have. So again, that's why it's so complicated, because, not to repeat our whole case to you, but we very simply thought we would come before you with an after-the-fact NOI to permit what had been done, and now we're essentially kind of been put back on our heels, and we're trying to figure out which direction to go.
Yeah, I have no problem with that. I'm fine with that.
So all that's really before you tonight is a continuance request.
Yeah.
yeah, that's the
but
longest
wanted you to
continuance
know-
request I've ever dealt with.
Entertained.
Somebody like to make a motion to continue to August 5th, or August, what was it, August?
August 15th. So
16th.
moved.
Thank 15th.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for listening to us and for your time.
Wait, they didn't vote
We'll
yet.
be back.
You work with Arden?
Yes.
You're going to take a roll?
Yeah, you didn't, no, you guys didn't vote yet.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I'm taking my own notes, too. Opposed? Carries unanimously. All right, next order of business is another continued notice of intent for SE 83-2430. Anthony Fiola, 1 Malfa Road, proposed raise and replace dwelling and septic within Flossie zone and buffer zones to a coastal bank and coastal beach. We have a letter in the file on behalf of our client. I think that's Anthony Fiola, Dan, not Anthony Malfa. Little
Missed
typo
that
error. They're looking to extend, or to continue to July 18th, 2024, and that's for SE 83-2430. Do I have a motion to continue to July 18th?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. Next order of business is another continued notice of intent for Donna Martell, 60 Grandview Avenue, proposed addition including a second-story garage, patio, and pool within land subject to coastal storm flowage, the riverfront area, and the buffer zone to a coastal beach and coastal bank. Oops, that's the wrong one. And I have no,
I didn't have anything.
No, we did not receive revised plans.
he didn't send you an email? Okay, so this one was a continued hearing. We just received the updated revised plan today, earlier today. So none of us have had a chance to look at it or review it or even see what was there. So I would suggest we continue this to July 18th.
So moved.
So moved. Okay, Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. Next order of business is a new notice of intent for SE 83-2438, Richard Dodd, 158 Pleasant Street, proposed 105-foot landward pier extension and 160 square feet of float within a fish run, land containing shellfish, land under the ocean, land subject to coastal storm flowage, the riverfront, salt marsh, and the buffer zones to a coastal beach and salt marsh. But no BVW, Dan, I mean,
Thrown in there either?
you had everything else, but,
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to recuse myself from this vote.
all right, let the record reflect that Commissioner Bishop has recused himself.
Good evening, Commissioners. Dan Ojala from Down Cape Engineering. With me is Dick Dodd's son, Michael Dodd. If there are any questions of the homeowner, Mr. Dodd purchased the home, I believe, in 1971, shortly after he permitted or got a license for the dock that was there, and has pretty much been in a similar situation. Some years later, Hurricane Bob came along and nicked the end of the pier off. There he is, Mr. Dodd himself. They replaced it at that time, was it 94, whenever that was, with a ramp and float to the left of the licensed L. And the two outhaul piles, which were destroyed, were kind of relocated, one to the end of to hold the end of the float, and the other one as an outhaul pile to the inward side. The pile does enjoy fairly deep water there. You can see basically a -6 mean sea level data right underneath the float, so plenty of water on this one. The Marine Fisheries had mentioned we might look at float stops, but I don't know that they understood that we had over 4 feet below mean low water under this, so there's plenty of water on this one, probably a little under 4 feet on the inward side, so well more than is needed. We had submitted a narrative, which I do apologize. It appears to me that our 3-page narrative was not inserted, and you got a 2-page narrative. But in any event, as typically we do, we went through all your Yarmouth Pier regulations. I think my secretary may have inserted the wrong one, although it's a little unclear to me which one. But just to hit some of the highlights, this is a notice of intent for what we're calling a landward extension of existing licensed pier, and by that we mean the existing license is proud of this by a number of feet. We're pulling it back, and just no new construction really out on the water. All the piles are going to stay there. The float is hopefully going to stay with your permission, and the ramp, we're just licensing up what's already there and has been there for 25 years or so. It's the 1973 license, so perhaps I was off by a year or two on that, was number 6072. What we would like to do is that when you walk out to the pier now, you have to cross some salt marsh. There's a sand area that they use to launch small sailboats and kayaks, and have since the early 70s. But then they have to walk across a bunch of salt marsh, and when I was walking out there, I kept crushing poor little fiddler crabs with my feet. I felt terrible. I weigh quite a bit, and I heard got awful crunching. So what we'll be able to do then is just extend that pier straight up to where the lawn is, and of course, they do enjoy a nice osprey pole there. After the season, after the ospreys have all flown south for the winter, with your permission, we'll move that pole over about 10 feet. And then that will be a nice straight extension of that side of the pier. DM, some of the agencies have been requesting a little bit higher piers now, so we narrowed the pier a bit from the licensed 4. We'll leave it as 4, but then when we come in, we'll go to 3.5 and elevate it about 5 1/4, which is their ratio, 1.5 times their height. Above to the bottom structural members, so that we have a good light penetration, and there'll be a full inch between the stringers, well, not the stringers, but the steps. the planks and boards so that there'll be some good light underneath the pier, and it's heading kind of in a good direction. This where the sun comes, you get a little from the east and a little from the west, so we don't expect that the salt marsh will be impacted hardly a bit. Maintenance will include, on the outer portion, replacement of the damaged and deteriorating boards. If you went out there, you can see they're a little unsafe, so we'd like to pull those up and replace them. The piles, as I mentioned, would all stay, so no real ground disturbance out in the water. Some piles landward, as were indicated, a couple just under mean high water, but maybe only one set. So very little disturbance. I think it's 9.5 square foot of disturbance is what the piles would be. So again, as you mentioned, there's many resource areas. There's salt marsh, land under oceans, coastal storm flowage, and riverfront, and almost all the site is under the 100-year storm elevation, even the home. Brad Hall flagged the salt marsh for us. The design of the pier includes a pile spacing of about 12 feet, a nice long span. There's only 9.4 square foot of marsh that would be impacted. The width of the decking at 3.5, and the bottom stringer is 5.25. So we have the 1-inch spacing, and that would meet the latest standards. And we feel that by concentrating the foot traffic on an elevated boardwalk for the pier access, the impacts of the marsh from foot access to the water are lessened considerably. And a sign would be placed near the mean high water indicating the right of public passage under the pier. And the way they write the 91, they often say walking as well as fish fouling and navigating, which is adequate and fine with us. Land containing shellfish, the narrative goes through that. The float at the end of the pier will be over land containing shellfish, and land under ocean is within a fish run. We've got a minimum of 4 foot of water at the end of the float, and the L at mean low water. So as no new pilings are proposed in this area, and the float will take advantage of the existing pilings already in place. We did not do a shellfish study as there are no impacts out there proposed. A shellfish study, 2 parcels to the south in 2019 indicated that there was no significant shellfish population. Out of 36 plots, only 4 quahogs were found, and the outer reach is 100 feet or so from mean high water. A small number of oysters and some ribbed mussels were observed in the marsh area and can easily be avoided during construction. The DEP does not map the areas having eelgrass beds, and we did not observe them. On your local regulations, we will display a permanently attached sign with the DEP permit number and the street address. Pier will be minimized to blocking. Again, we've got the 1-inch spacing and 3.5 feet wide. The existing one will remain at 4, but we'll have the 1-inch spacing. There's no impact to existing moorings. The closest mooring is the one that the Dodds use. The pier with the float will not impede or impact navigation with respect to the channel, abutting piers, or any commercial marinas. Number 4, decreased shading impacts. We've gone over that a couple of times, but we've got the 1.5 to 1 across the full extent of the marsh from the bottom of the lowest horizontal stringer to grade. Under 0.5, under 301, the existing license in 1973 was not, has not interfered with the recreational uses of the river, and the additional float, which has again been there for 20-something years, will likewise not interfere with boating traffic. We feel it's well accepted into the riverine environment at this point in time, and just are asking for permission for it to remain. Public rite of passage, proper signage will indicate the pier, as I mentioned. Your 0.7, the pier shall extend landward in line with the current pier, which allows for a nearly perpendicular layout, so that's acceptable. Lights is 12 foot apart, max 25 watts, no greater than 2 feet above the deck, directed downward, not on timers. There's Section 9, not applicable, shared docks. It's a private home with an existing licensed pier. Number 10, 80-foot length would be not applicable. It's currently licensed, and there's no increase in length proposed. In fact, we're pulling in the outermost licensed pile, so it's somewhat shorter than is permitted now. Water at the seaward side is 4 foot, landward side is no less than 2.5, and that's easily met, as I mentioned. Float greater than 75 foot to abutting piers and floats. The existing L portion are not in excess of are in excess of 90 feet to the navigable channel. That's versus 100, but again, the pilings that were previously permitted but never have been destroyed and not reinstalled since Bob are closer to the channel than the proposed float, and we're greater than 250 to a public boat ramp, landing, or swimming beach. And the proposed float is greater than 25 foot to the lot line. And at 8 by 20, I think we're 160 square foot. That's less than the 200 which we allow. 14 and 15, not applicable, no personal watercraft. 16, float and kayaks, dinghies removed seasonally and stored in upland portion of the lot or in the contractor's yard is acceptable. Point 17, seaward edge of the proposed float will be 104 feet beyond mean high water, which is the landward of the current licensed L, which is 124 feet from mean high water. The float with attendant ramp allows for much easier access to boats through the range of the tide. The float will have 4-foot clearance of substrate at mean low water, which is desirable environmentally, allowing for less navigation, or lesser disturbance of the bottom sediments. And keeping the float in the position poses no impact on navigation or other uses of the waterway to the public. Would request a variance to allow the float to be greater than 80 from mean high water, as there will be no impact whatsoever to any areas subject to protection under these regulations. And again, I think the environment has acclimated to it over the 20-something years that it's been there. Non-CCA materials will be used for the construction of the dock. No creosoted materials allowed. The dock is not within a no-dock zone. That's your point number 20. 20 and 21, not applicable. It's not a public project, and it's not a destroyed pier, except, to the extent that we discussed. Filing for permission to add float current on number 22, permit current piles and extend pier landward for access and avoidance of marsh impacts. And again, that's when you get out there, it's a lot easier. You don't have to cross salt marsh now. You'll just have that little 9 foot of impact, square foot, and then no more footprints back and forth daily. For repairs of greater than 20%, the commission shall be notified under current and performed under current regulations. Again, it's less than that considerably. We're just doing the float.
You're correct.
Soundings performed within 200 feet, not mapped as eelgrass, and the navigational channel distance is shown as 90. We're 88 feet off our own mooring, and identified navigational aids were non-ENF. So as an alternative analysis, the alternative to do nothing is not acceptable to the owner. They're concerned about future access and the use of their licensed pier. Alternative configurations of the extension were explored, but the proposed layout takes advantage of the location of the existing pier and will very closely match its appearance, almost exact except for the landward extension, I would say. This pier extension will be an improvement over what currently exists, as the applicant's family currently must walk across a salt marsh to access it. By constructing a pier at 5 1/4 feet over the salt marsh and providing the 1-inch spacing, the salt marshes will benefit with the added light penetration. The proposed project was approved by Yarmouth Waterways in May. A waiver is requested from the requirement of a 100-foot separation to the edge of the channel, and currently the corner of the existing float is about 90 feet to the channel. That would be about it. Again, I think it's important, big picture, to look at. This is something that's been here for many years. The Dodds have been here since before the Wetlands Protection Act and have enjoyed the property and been good stewards of it, and they would desire not to walk as much across the marsh, so that's why we're doing the landward extension and just keeping the float licensed or licensing it where it was rebuilt after Hurricane Bob. So I think it's a pretty straightforward project, and would certainly be glad to answer any questions if you have them.
Okay, thanks, Dan. I've got no issues with this other than the only thing I think you did as you were running through your review of our regulations. I think the one thing I did catch you say that the lights were on timers, and we don't allow timers. You need to put them on switch on both ends, so they can be switched on and off as needed. Other than that, that's all I have. So, anybody else on the board?
Actually, I'm not. It says lights that cannot utilize timers shall be switched at both ends.
Oh, I thought we were saying no timers whatsoever.
Currently, that is not
why
how it
would we?
reads.
I would prefer to see switches
yeah,
on both
I would
ends,
too.
not timers. I don't know why, I thought we took that out, but.
Well, it would both be belts and suspenders. I mean, the key is not to have them on when you don't want them, and if we're not using it, past a certain hour.
6:05 p.m.
Good grief.
Off during the day and at the dark of night, like after, right? I presume is that what we're after?
We're actually looking, so when you're not using the dock for whatever reason, you can, the lights are turned off and out, so they aren't creating any kind of light, even though they're being directed downward.
The only light I think that's on the timer is the light that focuses on the flag when the flag is flying, but it goes up at the flag, but I don't know, should that be off at night?
That's a separate matter.
That's
Out over the water,
So it's just out over for the dock itself?
Yeah, the dock is, no, they're only, the lights that are there were there just recently for an event, and they just plug in. They're not even on a switch. I mean, they have to be plugged in to be used, so.
Okay,
The
yeah,
whole-
so
the
as
whole-
long,
The whole
that's,
electric service switches off at the house. There's a switch there that turns it off.
I think we're hitting the same point here, so.
But it also blinds you, depending on how it goes.
Anybody else?
Yeah, the piles, I think this was brought up at the waterways, the piles that are not in use or not installed, you're not going to put those back in at all with this plan, correct?
Correct. Those are to be eliminated.
Those are to be eliminated on that. And the other thing I had is the nest is going to be moved off-season when the birds aren't going to be there.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's the only two I have.
Osprey will take care of that themselves, I think. Yeah.
I just have one.
Paul?
First of all, Dan, your presentation was kind of interesting. It just to go on and on and on about this it enabled me to get lost, But the thing is that the project is, if I'm understanding, straightforward. It was out of the property, very beautiful property, et cetera, that you want to put a walkway to connect the upland with the dock, and that was destroyed. You were saying that walkway was destroyed during Hurricane Bob, or?
No, it never existed. I don't know that the ground wasn't remolded a little bit there and maybe made it a little bit harder to get out there. But the point, what was destroyed was those outer piles. The boat was ripped off and the pilings were eliminated at the end of the pier. And so then when they rebuilt it, without a license, they just put the two piles back where they are today, which is at the end of the float and inboard a little bit.
Yeah, but that whole expanse from, let's say, the backyard to the dock, that wasn't there?
Never there.
It was
It's just,
never there,
our
and-
thought now is it was a special request of the owner, so they don't have to walk
I understand.
across the salt marsh to get out to it. It's kind of like an oddball, peninsula, and
No, I get that part of it. The thing is, I wanted to understand more clearly the history of it.
Yes.
And, it's noted in some notes here that our regulations have a 80-foot total maximum length for docks, starting with mean high water and so on. This will extend this whole thing to what length?
Well, again, it's not, the word extension, I would hesitate, because that would mean it's going out towards the water. It's not going out towards the water at all. It's coming back, so it's retreating or connecting back to the lawn, 80 feet across a salt marsh.
80 feet.
Yeah,
And
but
the
all
dock-
that area isn't out into the water. It's just to cross
Part out
this.
to the water is how long?
That's a rough round figures 80, but let me see
That's
That's
close enough.
yeah, round figures.
Okay, so just so I understand what the heck I'm voting on, it's a matter of building something over the marsh so that you can get to your dock,
Yes.
okay?
Yeah, and very importantly, licensing the existing ramp and float, which never got a license. So the L is all permitted and the two outhaul piles, but that ramp and float were never permitted, but they've been there since Hurricane Bob. So the river is well acclimated to them, in terms of people are used to seeing them there and the use by the owner.
I understand. I'll be very interested to hear what Brittany has to say about this.
Sure.
Thank you.
Excuse me, can I? If we license this, so the whole extension or going backwards, that would all be part of the pier now? And instead of just doing the pier and then doing the walkway separately?
Right. I mean, we could have a 1-foot gap, but it's kind of an odd property in that there's kind of a sandbar, then there's salt marsh. So where the ramp starts is out on like a little cape that comes from the side, and the middle bowl is all salt marsh. So you have to walk around and then over salt marsh to get to it. Instead, we're just going to bridge straight out so we don't have to walk over the salt marsh with our feet.
They're not wanting to walk over but if we split it up, we still stay in our regulations of 80 feet. That's all I'm trying to.
Yeah,
And we
well,
wouldn't be needing a variance on that.
So we wouldn't. The existing dock is already longer than 80 feet since it's
Already.
existed prior to our current regulations. It's already 108 feet. So, and they're asking for another 18 feet. So it would be around 127.
yeah, the numbers are on the top there. I couldn't figure out where I'd written them, but yeah, from mean high water.
I got 210.
The extension is
Yeah,
about 18 feet.
Within mean high water, the
Sea
dock.
level has changed, or the position of the mean high water was changed, probably by Hurricane Bob and some other events, so it's a little bit of a moving target, but yeah, there's another 18 feet that wouldn't have been under the existing license. There was a 108-foot under 6072, and then we're going to come back with a ramp about 19 feet to mean high water, and then another 105 of basically a walkway up just across the salt marsh.
It seems to me that it should be split in two different categories, only because we're going off our regulations by 100,
Quite a bit.
by 105 feet, that's a lot.
Well, don't forget, your regulation is only proud of mean high water. They don't talk about back of it. And so
I thought we were just total length, maximum length.
it's
of
from,
dock.
it's 80 from mean high water.
Mean high water.
Yeah. So it's kind of a freebie to, if you're crossing some odd marshes on our side,
What
so.
it is it's from high water, 80 feet out from high water, that we're trying to keep
Okay.
within that, instead of going back. I mean, they can, if they want to, they can build it to their second story walkout if they want,
So nothing in this,
because it's a.
nothing in
We're
this,
putting it together as a.
Yeah.
nothing in this request violates any of our regulations. Normally, this, like, for example, if this was presented, if there was no dock out there,
Well, it wouldn't be presented, most likely wouldn't stand muster if it was a completely new project.
Yeah.
Because we do have the 80-foot. But this is a pre-existing licensed pier that is at 105, 110 feet, and then you've still got another 18 feet from the landward end of the pier to the mean high water line. So, we would say from the mean high water line out, you would go 80 feet if we were doing this as a new proposal.
yeah.
But again, it's all off because we're already well in excess of what we have in our current regulations for all of the structure below mean high water. Make sense?
And the other thing to look
Asking for
at,
is essentially 18 more feet of additional pier below mean high water that would connect with the existing start of the pier as it is right now.
yeah, so.
Walk over, it's
Yeah,
basically a
so-
walk
Yeah,
over.
walk over or boardwalk, whatever you want to, however you want to.
So it is a boardwalk, really, or something like that, that we're talking about over the marsh, so that they don't have to walk all the way around, and I can see where that would be. Because I was at the property, that would be difficult, but I just want to make sure that, so we're confident that this doesn't violate anything that would be,
Yeah, I don't see that they're violating anything. Like I said, it most likely would not pass muster
today.
If they were coming for what's on the plan right now, they most likely would not be received favorably.
But that boardwalk didn't exist in the,
The boardwalk did not, but that's above mean high water.
But it's on the same
Yeah, so the weirdest part of this whole plan is that salt marsh usually does not exist above mean high water.
Yeah.
So it's weird that we have some marsh here above mean high water in such a significant space. It's big, it's there. So that's where,
Looks healthy.
that's why, I mean, some of it is kind of bare, but that's why it's so long.
Yeah.
Because we don't usually have any marsh above mean high water.
Yeah, it's definitely an odd duck, but it's, like I say, there's kind of a sandbar here that gives us the mean high water, and then I think just spring highs, monthly, it does get back
It
there, and
fills
it's
in
enough
on
to
the
sustain a
backside.
salt marsh. I think the other thing that Waterways looked at and so forth is there's another pier right beside here that's exactly the same length, so no hazard of navigation. We have a little bit more water than you'd require, but, it's very well acclimated, and that just makes sure we're not stirring up the bottom. And additionally, the Dodds are avid sailors. They don't do much motoring, and so they don't stir up the bottom as much. But it does work very well to bring the trimaran into here with the currents and so forth. It's a nice, easy way to navigate and get passengers on and off safely. So we sure would appreciate your approval. And again, it's because it's already there and it's only a modest change, and certainly no change to what's actually on the ground. We're hopeful that we could get any waivers requested.
I think the thing that makes it more acceptable in my mind is the fact that by creating a boardwalk, you're giving them a specific place where they're going to walk. It's not going to impact the marsh whatsoever. So hopefully the marsh may, as sea level increases, maybe that marsh will fill in and become more vibrant. But if you don't have the boardwalk, they're going to continue to walk through it. And the one thing I can promise you is where you walk, you're not going to get salt marsh vegetation. So it seems to me like an advantage there.
Yeah.
That could help the salt marsh sometime into the future as sea level rises.
That's a good point. And again, the only thing that's changing here is just the red here from here to here. Everything else is staying the same. So just the extension across the salt marsh to get to our lawn without having to walk across all that salt marsh.
Any other questions from the board?
The only other thing is that the float is fully within priority habitat, and we have not yet received comment from NHASP.
Yeah, so we have to wait for that anyhow, but. Okay, that's it?
That is all.
Okay. Anybody in the audience? Anybody on Zoom? All right. Would somebody like to make a motion to continue solely for the receipt of natural heritage comment?
I'll do that.
Jack?
Second,
You?
is there a date, or we just wait for the?
We'll just try for the 18th. That work, Dan?
I'm out of town, but I'll have somebody else come.
Okay. So 7/18 for NHESP only. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously.
Thank you all for hearing the proposal. I appreciate it.
All right, moving on, we are now with enforcement for Thiago Paraguay, 15 Wadsworth, and it's unpermitted regrading, installation of retaining walls, and failure to maintain the work limit line in riverfront area and the buffer zone to a vegetated wetland. Are you Thiago?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Good evening, Thiago Paraguay.
All right, if you would just hold on, we're going to get Brittany to explain what's going on, and then we might have questions for her, and then maybe for you.
Yes, just a second. Back in March, a violation notice was sent due to the observation of unpermitted retaining walls being constructed on this property. They have an open permit for the construction of the dwelling, driveway, etc., but there were no retaining walls on that permit. So violation notice was sent. it was sent to the incorrect address. So once we finally were able to get in contact with Tiago, we let him know that we would be seeking an amended order to have him seek permission for those retaining walls and any other changes that had been constructed that had not been permitted originally. The permit is set to expire in August, so I also let him know that we would also need an extension request because none of the mitigation planting have yet been installed. So there's a couple of components to this one, but there was just no response to the violation notice. So I required that they attend this meeting so that we can discuss next steps prior to issuing an enforcement order.
I have an issue with this too.
How many times did you reach out to the applicant?
Via email twice. Your voicemail box is full, just so you know, so I cannot leave a message. So I was just unable to, I did just send him 2 notices in the mail. So here's some of the walls on site. There's also an area where it looked like some concrete had been spread, where the driveways to remain gravel. And the other component of the original violation notice, which has been remedied since, is that part of the work limit line had been destroyed and there was some sediment in the riverfront area and buffer zone to the wetland, but that has been fixed. The silt fence has been repaired. There's still some sediment in the buffer zone to the wetland, but we can assess the regrowth in the fall and see if planting would be necessary at that time.
And you said the house is done now, or?
The house looks built. The inside probably not.
The landscaping is not.
It's just the landscaping that you're waiting on now?
Well, and some of the finishes in the interior of the home as well.
So you're looking for an as-built for this one, or?
Yeah, so my initial thought was that they need to request an amendment because they put in several retaining walls that are not on the approved plan. It would be an after-the-fact amendment, and they'd also need an extension. So I think an as-built would be a good place to start. I do remember you thinking about wanting a pool. Is that still?
Yes.
And then you could include that request on the amendment as well.
All right, so you just want to do the amended order, but before you do the amended order, you need to get an extension going, right?
Yeah, both.
So I would work on the extension first, get that taken care of. You're going to have an issue because it was Robin Wilcox who stamped this plan. And unfortunately, Robin is no longer with us, so you're going to have to get a new engineer who will be able to certify the positions of the walls, and especially if you're doing a pool. But you need to get that done. You need to get the extension done first. That's the first and foremost, because you're essentially 30 days away from the deadline. We normally ask for the extension to be asked for 30 days before it expires. It's going to expire, what do we say?
August 23rd.
August 23rd. So that doesn't give you a lot of time. So I would get an engineer on board at least for the extension. Get them to do the extension request, and then after the extension request has been filed, then they can start working on the amended order. But I would also ask that the extension request be made by you said 23rd of August was the?
Expiration date, yeah, so he would have to request by July 23rd.
By July 23rd. And that's not something we're going to give any kind of lenience on, okay? You need to have the extension request in by July 23rd.
Do you have an engineer that you're working with yet?
So I'm meeting with Merrill Engineering.
Say it again?
Merrill Engineering. They're out of Plymouth.
Okay.
I believe Duxbury on the 27th.
you're sure, you're definitely, you have a meeting with him though, right? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, any other questions from the board?
Do you want to put
Mr.
it?
Chairman, I must tell you, this is just me speaking, but I am so sick and tired of applicants coming before us and giving us the, gee, I didn't know, I didn't understand, proceeding with a very significant part of this project that was not permitted. I would recommend that these walls be removed and this applicant start with an application to see if this can get permitted. I can't even count how many times over the years we've had to say
very
to applicants that, you know, your excuse that you don't know and don't understand and you proceed without an application, for me, is unacceptable. I'm tired of it. I'm really tired of it. You know, you want to come to us next and ask for a pool, but you have these significant structures that were put in. I say remove them. That's what I say. But I'm just one vote.
Who did the work?
I did the work myself.
You did the work. So you knew you had an order of conditions, correct?
Yes, so the silt fence was actually, because of erosion, it was kind of destroyed. It's very close to the say like, very close to the wall limit there.
Because of this?
That's
It
what
was
the,
destroyed a few times, and, you know, the remedy that, you know, and I apologize for this, but that, at the time, I thought would have been, you know, a better fix was putting up the wall.
so the wall matches the work limit line?
Not just a wall, it's walls, plural.
Well,
There's
does
a-
the
Terrace.
Does the
Terrace, yeah.
resource most wall match the work limit line, or does it match, or is it beyond the work limit line?
No, so the walls, so he's describing erosion that would come down slope, and this has accumulated, this is from March. It accumulated to the silt fence and
Sorry,
basically
that was on
overtopped
silent. I
the
don't
silt
know what
fence.
happened.
By the time I was there, the walls were in place, but the walls are upland of the silt fence.
So, but
And
that's
then-
we know that's the correct position for the work limit line?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And so the sediment had accumulated and washed over the silt fence. It had come that deep that the sediment topped a 2.5-foot silt fence.
Well, I mean, I'm sorry, there's no reason to allow those silt fences to get overwashed and not correct them.
And
I mean, that's standard construction practice.
So I did correct them, probably over like a half a dozen times.
So when you say you corrected them, what did you do?
Well, I brought them back up, and then I also put in a new fence after.
But you didn't move them?
No, I did not move them.
Okay.
I left the existing one there. It's still in place. But if you do look at like the property next door to this, they have also issues with erosion based on like the elevation that the property is built. In order to have the septic system in the front of the property, that's like one of the issues with, I would say, the first 3 properties on the left side as you enter the neighborhood.
Okay, so
including.
I don't think we're arguing that there's an erosion issue. I think the
turned that off.
problem is that that you need to be addressing what's on your site, okay?
Yes.
Let's not worry about, and like I said, we're not arguing the fact that there's no erosion or there is erosion. Clearly there is erosion. Clearly you understand that. The question is, my bigger question was about the wall, and where, in relationship to the work limit line, where that worked out. So the walls are inside the silt fence.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's pretty much 3 walls on this side and 2 walls on this side.
And they
So
also.
the question I have then for you is that, like, if you had the order of conditions and you were the contractor and you have a plan of record, and on that plan of record, you don't see any retaining wall,
You're correct. That the only thing that I have to say is that the retaining walls and the pattern follows the original landscaping slope. But
I
it
get
just-
that, because that's how you would lay out the retaining walls. I'm not saying that the layout of the retaining wall was incorrect either. I'm just saying, if you are the contractor, you have an order of conditions, you have a plan of record, and you know we're on that plan of record, do you have any retaining walls? So one of the conditions in the order of conditions says any change of plan needs to come back to conservation, and you didn't do that.
You're correct. Yes.
So,
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to be leaving.
all right. You were right.
I'm never wrong. I'm never wrong.
How dare you?
Have a good evening.
So, I get Commissioner Bishop's frustration, and I'm kind of with it, but at the same time, I mean, I guess the problem is we don't have any penalty. I mean, we can issue $300 citations and everything. That's fine. Unfortunately, we don't have any way of charging an after-the-fact filing fee, so we're going to say, okay, file the notice of intent, and we're going to give you the wall. I mean, I don't see why we would not give them the wall, but I would say they would also be coming up with some healthy mitigation for that as well.
Mr. Chairman, I certainly understand Commissioner Bishop's frustration. We run into this quite a bit. The thing that strikes me is that the enormous amount of work, the enormous amount of money that went into this kind of thing to build those walls, and, I think the chairman has represented what has to be done about it. One of my questions, though, is do these kinds of things, these walls that are built on property like this, have to go before the building department? Is there any interchange?
They're more than 4 feet above from the footing to the top of wall. If it's more than 4 feet, then it has to go to building.
So
it should get a permit.
building department comes over, they don't look at any plans at all. I'm not trying to point the finger, I'm just trying to understand.
Well, I think they would look at a plan. You would have a plan.
But they wouldn't give the homeowner, the contractor, a heads up that, hey, you're gonna run into trouble with this.
Well, I don't think you ever filed with building department for the walls, did you?
The walls are not over 4 feet.
But doesn't the building department have to go and do inspections on this property for other things? And don't they see things that are happening and maybe have a question when they look at the plans that were approved by the Conservation Commission? Maybe I just don't know what I'm talking about, but the things, it seems it's this egregious, action, but it puts everybody in a bad situation, Again, the work, the money, everything else that goes along with this is significant. And at no point in time did the homeowner or the town say, hey, wait a minute, you gotta stop here for a second. That doesn't happen, I guess.
Well, we tried in March.
Well, yeah, you tried, and he didn't respond, but the thing is, that was after the
Up in
fact,
March?
too. That was,
Well,
you're,
the house was up in March.
Yes,
you're
So
contacting him after these things are up.
this is true. There's no way for us to know about most of this stuff, and the building department does bring me more things than David does, so they do talk to me about a lot of violations.
Oh, they do, okay, all right.
But sometimes we just don't have it on the schedule.
I know it gets complicated between departments and everything, but it's so unfortunate. People find themselves in this particular situation, Sometimes people do it, I guess, just because they think they could do it, and sometimes they do it because they're mistaken about it. So, I don't know. It's just too bad.
But you can't tell me those walls aren't 4 feet from the footing.
They are.
They absolutely are.
They're 5, at least 5.
There's no way those walls are under 4 feet.
4 feet from.
4 feet, so anything, any retaining wall over 4 feet from the bottom of the retaining, or from the bottom of the footing to the top of wall has to get a building permit. And you didn't get a building permit for the walls.
From grade there.
Yeah, grade,
4
no.
feet from grade.
I'm not sure about
I thought it was from the foot.
I thought it was from the footing,
I'm
too.
pretty sure it's from the footing.
You're saying bottom of footing.
Yeah, top of footing.
Well, we can ask them,
Still
but
over
they're
4
not
feet.
here.
On the
Either
blocks.
way, are you over 4 feet off, over grade?
Yeah.
Because I didn't see this one. Are you over 4 feet?
Blocks.
Well, that's a good point.
Yeah.
But you also have to be a very experienced mason. I mean, that's beautiful work. But, you know, so I don't know why. So wait a minute, maybe I better check with somebody and see if I could do this. That's the thing that's frustrating.
Well,
3, 4, 5, 6.
Why-
That one's even taller.
My other question is like,
That's not
have
one
you
we're
been
on.
before us with other projects?
No, sir, I have not.
And where?
Before us for the project.
He looked familiar, and so I was wondering if you've been before us with other projects, that's all.
The only time I've been here was with Robin originally.
When you came in originally for the, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't think we're going to resolve this except for him talking to the company and they're coming back with a
Engineer firm, you mean?
engineering. So I think it's up to them
In the
to,
building department, too.
and whatever the engineer is going to recommend. If it has to go to the building department, the engineer will know.
I mean, I think you should go and talk to the building department, and just let them know and that
Ken?
this happened, and then
Sharing is caring. That's what Brad always tells me.
they'll find, we'll find out once and for all what the exact regulation is that way, but
And so the as-built plan, just to be clear, should show existing elevations as well, because there's some berming up on the side that's also pretty significant for you and your southern neighbor that was not originally permitted as well.
Continue.
no, if you
So we need to do,
want the rest of the board to consider that, you need to make a motion.
Oh, okay. I'd like to make a motion that we remove require that the unpermitted and unapproved walls be removed.
I will second. So all those in favor of removing the walls, say aye.
Aye.
You're going to have to have a vote.
Let me do it by hand. 'Cause so all those in favor of removing the walls, raise your hand. And not to move the walls. 1, 2, 3. Okay.
I think it's time to resign.
It doesn't matter.
I know.
I believe removing the walls would cause even more environmental damage.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, my only reasoning for not doing it is just, again, I really get the frustration of it. And I still don't know that we shouldn't be issuing a $300 fine just for, I mean, I would say we would at least need to do at least one $300 fine for failing to adhere to the order of conditions. And you can pick whichever order you want to put, whichever condition you want to put on it as to which one they didn't adhere to, but ultimately we would
second
approve
that.
those, those walls, so.
Well, that's not a given, is it, that we would approve the walls? I mean, he still has to come back with the
Well,
plan.
no, they have to come back, yeah, I mean, it's like
It's not
we're.
a given, then
Yeah,
I'm
no,
gonna
no.
vote yes.
So,
I need to see the plan now.
they are permittable, let's put it that way, I should say it that way.
Okay.
If the board says otherwise, then I guess we will be moving, or they will be removing them, then,
Okay.
so.
I guess I would be interested in further consideration of what somebody might think to be a solution to this problem, as opposed to just tearing everything down right now.
Well, I would be moving forward, do an as-built plan, come back and get the extension, issue a citation, come back with an amended order within 30 days of the extension, is what I would say.
So by August 23rd.
So moved.
Right? And then they should also be looking into mitigation for, oh wait, what's the,
Yeah,
is
let me
it
just look at the
undisturbed?
deadline. Is what?
Is it undisturbed in the 50?
Yeah,
Is the 50 undisturbed, I should say?
50 is where,
We're within the 100.
All undisturbed?
Yeah.
yeah, the work limit line is landward of.
Yeah, the work limit line's here, but I'm just saying this is not, it's not like grass or something over here in the 50-foot, right?
No, it's undisturbed.
All right, so we don't even have mitigation then, so.
As constructed, do you think those walls will allow for equipment to get in and construct a pool?
Guess we're gonna find that, aren't we?
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. It guess it depends on where you put the pool too, so.
So just an edit, August 22nd is a deadline day, so that should be when the amended order is due.
Extension, amended order. That's it.
Second, the summer's done.
And the amended order will have the, right, the amended order will have the
As-built
essentially the as-built.
conditions, yeah, and then whatever pool
Whatever
request.
proposal, okay.
And what about the fine? Has that been taken off the table?
No, that's included in the three things.
Okay.
You want to do the fine, right?
Yes.
And it was moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously. The $300 fine for failure to,
Sign the, to sign the
oh,
enforcement order.
and we will sign, yes, I will sign. And we will also finalize this then with the ratification of the enforcement order, which covers all of the things that we've just discussed, the extension, the amended order, the fine.
Mr. Chairman, you have somebody in the audience when you're ready.
We don't take public comment on enforcement orders.
I wasn't aware of that. I would have written a letter.
Again, we don't take any public comment from the public. That this is not an open hearing for that. Okay.
So when does a neighbor does a neighbor have the opportunity to weigh in?
The neighbor will have the opportunity when they come back with the notice of intent.
The amended.
So when they come back for the walls and the pool. Okay. So and you should be. Are you in a direct abutter? Yes. So you would get notification then. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Extension, amended order, we voted on that yet?
And yeah, we just need to order,
Motion
would somebody make a motion to ratify the enforcement order?
So moved.
Second, Jack?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously.
So was the first vote just the contents of the
First
enforcement order?
vote was on the wall, the second one was on the
Contents,
Fine.
citation,
Yep.
no citation.
and then the third vote is to ratify the enforcement order that will cover the extension, the amendment, and that's it.
Thank you.
And the citation. You with me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
I will send you an email with all of those things in addition to a hard copy mailed to your address. You can let me know if you have any questions.
Okay, so, and make sure you pay attention to those deadlines, because if you miss those deadlines, you're going to be looking at $300 fine every day until you meet it,
So
okay?
it's the July 23rd and August 22nd, correct?
Yeah.
Right,
Yep. Thank you.
okay? All right, next order of business, another enforcement hearing for Michael Sarigian, 53 Aunt Dora's Lane, unpermitted construction of a dock and land under the ocean, salt marsh, and land subject to coastal storm flowage.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to recuse myself from this hearing.
All right, let the record show that Commissioner Huggins recused himself.
Okay, so 53 Aunt Dora's Lane is abutting Fallens Pond. It was brought to my attention by a boater that a new dock was installed on Fallens Pond at a very low elevation on top of the marsh. I could not tell from aerial imagery that this had been in place prior, so I issued an enforcement order for an unpermitted dock. I thought it was a brand new dock. It has, in fact, been in place for quite some time. Since 1999 is when they got their first interim approval from the Waterways Division, although they never got a wetlands permit. The property has also transferred ownership, and so the interim approval was never recorded under the new owner, so it is expired. So the contents of the enforcement order just said that required that the unpermitted dock be removed, and that's all it said because I thought there was never a dock there prior. Upon further investigation, the homeowner visited me today in the office. I realized that it had been in place for a while, but under our current regulations would never be permitted at such a low elevation.
And when did you say this was done? This was,
The work was to put in
the permit went through on what?
the Waterways approval. It's an interim approval from 1999. It was a 30-year, but
Never came through us.
it never came through wetlands, yeah. And the property has also transferred, and the interim approval requires that you have a year after transfer to reapply, and they did not do that, so the interim approval is also expired. It's, as my understanding, not a waterways specialist, but that's what I understand from what the waterways license says.
Yeah, so it went through the 91, not through conservation. It did get our water, it was our waterways, or it was just
yeah,
Waterways
just that.
91? Okay. Yeah, and it's only good for 30 years, so.
Yeah. And Blue Rock Marine built it's a new dock, the pilings. I think are the pilings new as well, or just the dock?
Dock, some of the pilings.
Okay, some pilings are new, but all the surface and the floats are also new. But there is the decking, the graded decking is being used.
I really can't believe 91 actually approved this, but my eyes, they are the proof.
Yeah, so here's the...
Well, I mean, so we're looking to for them to get a new approval all the way around, both from 91 and us. So you have to file a new notice of intent. Is that what you're asking?
I would believe that is the path forward.
That would be the way to go. I got to tell you, I am not real inclined to go with that, those extended floats going out into the water like that. I would. So you should consider that when you're talking to your engineer about getting the permitting and the original or the proposed plan.
I just replaced what was there. Actually, I made the floats even shorter.
I understand.
It extended out 50 some odd feet, and this is 48.
But you were only given approval for 20, right?
No. Given approval for, I believe, 52 feet.
Does that not say 20 foot right there?
Can I say? Yeah, it says 20 foot.
Or am I looking at the wrong?
You might be looking at something different.
I
There
mean-
were 1, 2, 3.
There's 3 floats
You got 12.
4, actually. There were 4 floats.
and a 12-foot ramp.
I see 48
12,
feet
24,
of floats.
36,
Yeah.
Yeah.
52
who's-
feet. So this is shorter.
But that's not, this is the 91 permit.
Mm-hmm.
And I see
40 feet of float and a 12-foot
12,
ramp.
12, 24, 16, 40. Feet of floats beyond the stationary, right?
It doesn't matter because it's expired.
I mean, that, I don't, I guess I don't, that's precisely, I don't, I'm just trying to give you a little piece of advice that if you come back with this plan,
That's
I'm not
even-
gonna,
it's not even a
I'm not
plan.
gonna entertain it, so. That's just me, there will be 7 commissioners here. I'm just saying, I think you can do better than what was done in 1990.
I tried to do better, actually. I had the old wooden floats with the styrofoam. They were all beaten up, weather, storms, whatever. So I tried to go with, was it polypropylene things, which lets the sunlight in and
I
whatever.
appreciate all that. I'm just saying, you did exactly what the plan said, and I appreciate your efforts to change up for modernization, but I think you can still do a slightly better.
Looks brand new. Is it relatively
new?
It's brand new, yeah.
Brand new. I just had it done. And basically, I was told I didn't even have to seek a permit because it was a replacement. And so I guess I was told wrong by two contractors.
Yeah.
We should know better.
Well,
Yeah,
I
unfortunately,
don't know
sometimes
better.
they just don't pay attention to 91 to see, they don't look too hard,
Yeah.
and that's.
What's in the
sometimes
water
you
to
pay
stop
for it.
the floats from moving side to side?
There's pilings that these are cantilevered off of, and that's how they were before, too. So they don't, actually, they were gonna put a piling at the end, because there was a piling there at one time, but I decided that I really didn't want to disturb things. So here I am thinking I made a major improvement, ecologically, didn't disturb any vegetation, basically.
How deep is it at the end of the water, at the end of the float, like a low tide?
I'm not sure, Rick. I really don't know. It's probably at low tide?
Yeah. What?
No, God, no. 6 feet, 7 feet, maybe?
Really?
Yeah,
6 feet off the edge there?
Wow.
yeah. And then the tides have changed a lot since they opened up the railroad bridge, so that was.
Brittany, how many towns have you tried to reach out?
Oh, no, this is the first time he responded
Great, thank
with
you.
very short notice.
Done everything.
I just heard, well, my son just heard and sent me the thing and said we have a meeting this Thursday, which I think 4 days.
So I appreciate your
Oh, yeah.
quick response with that, so
What's my option?
I would suggest that we issue the enforcement order, we ratify the enforcement order to create to have you issue or apply for a notice of intent to re-license or you're going to be doing a brand-new license because the old license expired. But you would come up with a new plan for, and I think you can probably just make that a little bit better.
Better in
It would
which
be a
way?
notice of intent, regardless, even if you were going to come back with the exact same footprint, you would have to still file a notice of intent in order to, I don't want to keep saying
Satisfy our
relicense.
regulations.
To basically go, you need to go back to Waterways because the license has expired. So you need to get a new license from Waterways, from Chapter 91, and you also have to come through Conservation and get an order of conditions to do that as well, which was never done.
This just be giving them the 30-year total?
The
Or are we
30
giving
years
them another
retired.
30 years?
You would need a new one.
Years, was it, or 90?
It's
There
30.
was there a 99-year thing, too?
There was for a time, yeah. I don't think they
I
do
think
the.
that was, I
This was
tried to do the thing.
This was an interim approval, so it was valid for 30 years. That's what you're, 30, yeah, 30.
And so to make it better, it would have to conform to our current regulations since a rebuild of a dock is considered new construction.
Actually,
And that would
Only give them 4
probably
years,
require
right?
there
elevation.
you go, Pat. You know your dock stuff.
Well,
What'd you say?
this particular configuration.
It transferred, so this is an interim approval valid for 30 years from the date of issuance. If the affected property is transferred to a new owner for valuable consideration, this approval shall expire 1 year from the date of transfer.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying it's
So,
expired.
yeah, so you need to,
That's why they need a new one.
yeah.
The ownership just transferred.
But you did a transfer in 2008 as well, to a trust. I think.
You say so?
You did?
I did.
I tried to do my homework right before.
Of course, my kids,
So the
kids
long
can
and the
throw
short
me
of
out
it,
of the house now.
you need to get yourself an engineer. The engineer will prepare a notice of intent. You can decide on however you want to apply. You can, for whatever configuration. You know, that's something you need to just speak to your engineer about and how you want to have them present it. You'll file a notice of intent with conservation, and also at the same time, he'll file the licensing with Chapter 91 waterways as well. It's the state permit.
So in other words, I just had this built, I got to redo something different.
You may be able to use parts of it, yeah, it just,
What, like,
Be aware of the new regulations.
what are they? I don't know. I guess I'll find out.
talk
engineer
to your engineer will come out, they'll do a quick survey to see exactly what the site conditions are, and then they'll get you back in compliance as quickly as possible. But it's gonna be, I mean, waterways permits, it's not like you're gonna go out there and get it in 2 weeks from now, but you'll get this permit, the Conservation Commission permit, long before you get your waterways permit. But once you get it, then from Conservation, you'll be able to start your building. Okay?
Does he have to take the?
Yeah, so this can stay while we're filing these.
Can you say it again? I'm sorry.
This can stay as is for the time being while we file the notice of intent.
What say you?
Let's say Brittany.
I don't vote.
I mean, personally, I would allow you to keep it because it's been the exact same thing that's been there since whatever it was, 1999 or whatever it was, and
Where do you guys store your floats in the off-season?
Store them up in the yard.
Thank you.
yeah, I mean, I think it's just, this was an unfortunate set of circumstances that, because they seem to have done everything they think they were supposed to be, so.
When did you take over the house? What year?
I've lived there since 1994, and I guess,
Just transferred ownership from a trust to.
In January.
You should say something to the people that you worked with.
Yeah,
Didn't give you a heads up on this.
you don't see him here, do you?
Who
That
was
would
it?
be Blue Rock Marine. And I did
Do you know him?
No, never heard of him.
Who were they?
Blue Rock Marine.
I went through, I had one quote from Lemco, which I'm sure you heard of them.
Yep.
They said they didn't think I needed a permit. Okay. And then I went with Travis Husband, who's whatever the name of that company is. I just knew him when he was in
I heard
high
of that one,
school.
Paul.
Either.
And does beautiful work. And he said you're just replacing it. If anything, you're making the pier short, the pier shorter. You're putting in something that the sunlight can get through. I mean, it's like, so this is kind of kicking the teeth, to say the least.
Kind of odd that he knows the key words to say, and yet
Yes.
he knows that he doesn't have to look for a
The
91 permit.
contractor.
Not you.
Oh,
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, not you. I mean, I'm talking about the contractor.
I did issue alongside the enforcement order, since I was under the impression that this was a brand-new dock, never to having being existed before. I did issue a $300 fine to the homeowner. just, that was part of the enforcement order. You would prefer
Come on,
we
give
may
me
reroute
something,
that.
buddy. Give me something here.
When did you write it? I'm gonna leave that up to you.
On the day, on the 12th.
I'm gonna let that up to you, Brittany.
We have a motion to,
Would somebody like to make a motion to ratify the enforcement order with the, I guess we should put a date in there. You're gonna need probably 4 months. We'll give you 4 months, and then if you're having issues, make sure you come back to us before that, but I think.
You know what we're supposed to do? I have no clue. what
I'm
they're even
assuming I'm going to
talking
get it in a
I mean, it's
email
gonna,
with the
you're gonna need
instructions.
to get an engineer involved with it. You know, who I'm, but either way, an engineer is gonna take, realistically, it's gonna be 4 months before you can get a plan, put together by an engineer, so.
Okay.
But like I said, you're allowed to move forward with all of this, and you're allowed to keep it as it is.
What's, I didn't mean to interrupt, but like, what am I gonna, what do you do? Raise the floats? I mean,
So-
What do you do?
the engineer will make a recommendation for a fixed structure out to a certain point in the water within our regulations, and then
Engineer will do it.
the
you
engineer
have
will.
to have a fixed structure?
The way our regulations are such that there'll need to be a wooden dock structure that goes out a certain amount based on our regulations, and then one
Isn't
or
that what's
possibly
there now?
2 floats at the end of
Isn't
it
that what's
within
there
our
now, right now?
regulations.
You have a fixed,
Short one.
yeah, because that's fixed right now, right? The part that's over the marsh, that's all fixed and that stays permanently, right?
Yeah.
It's brand new, too.
Correct.
But it was there, I mean, it was there as a.
Right, but we don't typically approve 3 floats like that.
No, I'm saying the fixed portion, he was asking about the fixed portion.
No, I was talking about the floats. There's always been floats there, and
Yeah, I mean, we would not, because you're, well, again, whatever, the engineer's gonna take care of all of that. He's gonna look at everything. You're allowed a maximum of 200 square feet of float. But he's gonna look at everything, including floats, the amount of floats, the amount of fixed pier, and he's gonna be looking at water depths and everything as well, so.
Shellfish and.
And he'll do the whole package for the notice of intent, so everything that you'll need to do for the notice of intent.
Thank you.
And again, I wish we didn't have to do it this way, but it never
expensive way
received
to go.
permitting from the Conservation Commission, way back when, and you're expired on the waterways permit, so you have to do it either way, so.
Do you have an email address?
I do.
Would you mind writing it down for me?
Sure.
All right, so would somebody like to make a motion
Don't move.
for the 4 months? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously.
Thank you. And I'll email you over the enforcement order and also mail it to you. It'll have all the details.
Okay.
thanks, Brittany. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you again for coming in. I appreciate the fast response.
7:02.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
All right, next order of business, the approval of meeting minutes for May 16th, 2024. Rick and Pat are not allowed to vote on this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Would somebody like to make a motion? If you're not Rick or Matt or Pat?
So moved. Is this the one, which one is the date?
May 16th.
Is that the one where we considered the, I've not seen that.
Emailed last week.
Say that again?
This is the new one? This is the one that he had issued with before, or is this?
Yes. 16th?
And you made, yeah, so you made the changes that he asked?
I wasn't at the meeting, but Finn,
Whoever Finn, yeah,
Finn did
Finn did
something.
the.
I have not seen that, so.
also, it is important to note that the minutes are not a transcription of events.
Yeah.
They are a summary of the discussions.
Yeah, well, there was no summary at all of a discussion, the questions asked, or,
Yeah, there is.
I'm sorry?
There is a summary of the discussion that we had.
I would make it differ.
We can't include every question asked, especially
There
when,
was no questions that were asked in the in the minutes that I saw. There was no people quoted.
I think Brittany's point is that we don't always quote everything that's asked.
My point, yeah.
To summarize, at least when I did.
Are we
minutes.
talking about the same, we're talking about the recharge.
yes, there was a discussion about the mounding, the discharge, the wetlands monitoring, and those were all included in the minutes.
I have not seen those.
They were sent out last week.
All right, so.
Well, if you did, well, I'd prefer to see them before, because I think this is one of the more important.
No, I'm sorry, but you're sure that you sent them out, right? Well, I know you, I saw you sent, I didn't look to see what they were, but,
Yeah.
okay. It's been moved. Is there a second?
He seconded it. Jack seconded it. Did Jack second it?
Do you still want to second that?
I didn't second.
Oh, well, I
Is there
moved it.
somebody else who can second it? Paul? Would you second it?
Yep.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, 3-1.
And then we have the other one,
Was it here?
June 6th,
June 6th.
Look at these minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry, and June 6th.
which everybody can vote on.
Everybody can vote on that. Would you like to make a motion to,
Yes. I move
is
that
there a
we
second
accept it.
on June 6th?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Yes, I haven't seen them.
You didn't get it in the email?
That's an abstain.
In the email.
Or abstain?
Abstain as well.
Okay. So, 1, 2, 3, 5-1. 5 with 1 abstention. All right, we are moving up to wastewater update.
I will give you the Cliff Notes version. Then you can ask questions if
summarize
you
it?
want.
Do the cliff note to the cliff note.
So, I've been going to the meetings. We have 6 contracts. For contract 1 is the plant. The bid is going out, the general bid is going out at the end of August. I don't understand all of this, but the sub-bid is going out the end of July. So it means that we got permission from DEP to go out to bid, which is good. Everything is supposed to be done by the October 31st deadline so that we can get the money that we're supposed to get from the state. So that's moving along. The issue is where to put all the 1.3 million gallons from Phase 1. Contract 1 is different than Phase 1. Phase 1 is all these 6 contracts I'm going to talk about. And right now, they have 370,000, that's per gallons per day, 370,000 gallons going to Buck Island and 250,000 going to Bayberry Golf Course, which gives you 620,000, so you can still, there's still places they're still looking. They're still discussing with DEP on the fact that Cape is much different than other places in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and that if they keep these standards of only allowing, I think it's 1.1 inch of waste of water, that nobody on Cape Cod's going to be able to meet that. So they're hoping that the DEP sees that and moves on. Contract 2, which is Route 28, anything on Route 28 is stopped till Labor Day. They did get an extension into June, but the Long Pond to Main Street is going to continue, as well as some other side streets. Buck Islands, if you've been driving Buck Island, we've already started that too. The bidding for Contract 4, which is the bridge, Bass River Bridge, is happening any day now, I hope, and that'll start soon too. Contracts 5 and 6, which is west of Parker River, they're hoping the bid will go out in August, is what's hoped for, and if it is, that'll start too. So it's moving along, which is all I can say. There have been some issues. I'm sure Brittany knows some of them, whether they hit the wires because the back of the truck stayed up as he was driving down Route 28, or whether it was broken pipes, water pipes. But, you know, those are, some of those
Why we lost
happen normally.
Internet or something, right?
Yeah, that's why we lost power that day.
Yeah. So.
There's an oil spill.
So that's it. I mean, the people the town's working with are great. So are the people who are in the town, who are overseeing all this. Very, very impressed with all of them. A lot of the, you know, if I was them, I'd be super frustrated. They're very good about not showing that. So,
Well done.
at least to me, maybe differently when they're private, but. So, that's it. That's the Cliff Notes version.
And the order of conditions went out for the project, right?
Yes.
And
We have not been appealed.
no blowback from anybody on the monitoring time?
No.
Good.
So that's it. That was the quickest version I can give.
It was a very good and succinct. I appreciate your brevity.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board on that?
Yeah, hopefully,
I'm here to remind you that there is no meeting on July 4th, 2024. So if you were planning on showing up, don't. Or you can, but
So the meeting will be the 11th?
No, it'll be on the 18th.
18th. Could I just make a plea for, does Finn have a key to the building?
Yes, so there was a misunderstanding.
Okay, we kind of
Finn
figured.
did the inside door.
He did the inside door.
There's a latch. He locked that. He understands now that he has to lock the outside door as well.
Oh, there you go. I didn't
Second.
even know the inside door could lock.
Yeah, neither did I until that's what
How
he
you
told
like
me.
that? Well,
Yeah, so you'll have Finn again on the 18th.
But I
Remind him
suggest
to give his key.
he also
Okay.
needs to know that he's got to wait until everybody's out, right?
Yeah, he was the last one to leave.
yeah, he was definitely the last one to leave. I saw him leaving.
Look for him.
Yeah, you guys are in the parking lot still.
Yeah,
but
I saw him
He was the last
leaving.
one to leave the building.
Which is why I knew we were in trouble.
Yeah.
Because I'm sitting there like, ooh, that's not good. All right.
I move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Yep.
7:12?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'd like to
Carries.
wish Brittany a happy wedding.
Yes. Yay.